right, I'm Pops. Let me talk about Accountant 2. That's right. Accountant is a film in 2016 that I really enjoy. The link will be in the description of a recent Talk Hard that we did so I could introduce this film to others because a lot of folks hadn't even heard of it or didn't see it or didn't even really know much about it ahead of the sequel coming out. But Ben Affleck returns as Christian Wolff, a man that has sort of an autism slash Asperger's. He's an incredible mathematician that we see a lot of in the first film, and in this film is going to center around him. We do meet him sort of in real life. He appears to be trying to meet girls. He goes to this sort of, I don't know, setup. Yeah, I don't know these dating things. I don't get all this, but reality is he's trying to connect to other people. He's trying to find his place in the world a little bit. Medina is back. She's the federal FinCEN director that took over for J.K. Simmons' character, Raymond King. And we find some things have happened here that kind of usurp the situations in the first film and get her seeking out the accountant for some help. And I would say I disappointed the trailer and everybody's in the advertising is really kind of spoiling all of that. I didn't really watch any of that footage. I watched just the first couple of minutes. I watched the first few seconds of the trailer. Went, yeah, it's good enough. I'm going to go see it. However, they do spoil it in the trailer. I'm going to stay away from that spoiler. So I'd recommend if you want to see this film, go in cold. Don't know anything. Just that's the best way to approach it. But he's that character. I would say the biggest criticism I would have of Ben Affleck as Christian Wolff in the sequel is they kind of changed the way he talks. His voice inflection and his cadence appear to be really different. We're supposed to be about 8 years after the events of the first movie. His character doesn't really quite feel the same as it did the first time around. John Berthold's back as his brother, Braxton. And again, that's kind of a spoiler for the first movie. I don't know how to talk about a movie like this without doing it. Berthold and Affleck have great chemistry together, and it gets really interesting as the film goes on. The film does seem to know how to plot along a little bit. It's a little over 2 hours, so it just feels like it needs to be trimmed. When we first meet Braxton, he's actually on the phone. He's trying to buy a dog. He wants to pick the dog up at 6 weeks, not 8 weeks, because he's impatient. And you're seeing him psych himself into trying to have a normal conversation or how to talk to a normie. It is really good and really telling of how his character is very similar to Affleck's Christian Wolff. But it just went on too long, and we could have just made comments about the dog and the situation or had something a lot faster than this. But it works okay. And then once they're together, they have some interactions, and then Medina's there, and then they have interactions for a while where they're sitting around talking, and then I don't know, it just kind of the pacing is kind of all out of whack a little bit. Okay, so this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Is Christian has this kind of flirtatious moment with this waitress. She's really beautiful, and they're line dancing at this country western bar. So he goes up there because he's watching the sequence, and it's almost like music, right? So it's step here, step there, do this. So his brain is able to process that so rapidly. He looks like an expert doing this the very first time. And he gets confronted by this guy who's like, oh, it's another dude and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, man, get out of here. You're nobody. You're not anybody. And it's confrontational. And she's like, no, you're from Glendale. You're not anybody. And the Christian leans in and then basically just said, listen, my brother's not really having fun. Go ahead and punch me in the face. And then he has this great line, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. I laugh. I think it's my favorite line in the whole movie. And it was like, it's great. And then, of course, a bar fight. Now, the editing and sequencing are a little weird. It is spoiled in the trailer, but I had a good time with that part. Okay, Daniela Pineda is in this as well, and it's the backstory that it just makes things so convoluted. What was the investigation about? She's part of this family. It's a husband, a wife, and a kid, and she's basically like now just this assassin. And the commentary for all this is pretty convoluted and quite a stretch. I think that the writer and director are obsessed with trying to have this, what is the purpose of these individuals that have autism and Asperger's or, brain injury or brain structure? It's like, this one's kind of weird because their premise is she's in this tragic accident. It triggers a part of her brain. Now she's a super assassin. And you're like, okay, hold on. Wait a minute. We went from little Spanish woman who doesn't do anything when her husband's being murdered in front of her and her son's being kidnapped to master assassin because of a car accident. It's just really odd and quite of a stretch. I do think the premise is not bad. It's just there's so many layers that they're trying to do with this film compared to the other one. Of course, the film's going to In with the, big fire shootout and the big thing going on there, and they're, of course, great together on camera, great wit back and forth. You have the shot of them on the streamline where they're chit-chatting and talking. All of that is probably the best elements of the film, but reality is the accountant isn't really about the accountant. He's never accounting, by the way. If you didn't see the first movie and you wandered into this one, you're gonna be quite confused on why he's even called the accountant. They tell you why, but you never see it in action like the first movie. I also feel like I said, there's this convoluted backstory of what they're doing. Medina is one of the worst elements of the first movie, and this one has way too much of her in it. Way too much. She's insufferable to watch. Not particularly a great actress. Her back and forth, whether she wants his help, not his help, and she's got this whole metaphor they put in about a comfortable chair as being a metaphor for she's not comfortable in her chair, meaning she didn't earn her seat and place at FinCEN. It's all right. There's nothing that spectacular about the shootout and the final thing and the rescue. I will admit I have a little bit of a heartstring moment when it has to do with like anti-trafficking, and those stories are getting sort of like dealt with a little bit. But overall, it's a massive step back from the first film. First film, I biasly enjoy more than most people do. I have it more like a 4 out of 5 because I enjoy rewatching it so much. So it's probably more of a 3, possibly 3.5 star movie. This one is significantly less than that. It's more like a 2.5 movie, maybe a 3. I don't know. I think when I rewatch it, I'll have a better feel for some of the setup and payoffs because I don't feel that connected. And I feel like it was just way too long. Things were stretched out too much. There were things that you could do to clean up a lot of those elements, but yeah, the end product was just mediocre or slightly better. Whereas I think The Accountant is like an underrated gem. I think it's really a good film. So that's kind of where I came down on this one. I don't know if you've seen The Accountant or The Accountant 2. I'd love to hear from you guys. I enjoyed this for all of it. I don't think I had any major surprises or anything like I did with the first film. I think that was the other reason I guess I could say I was a little bit disappointed because I feel like you didn't do anything particularly really new or interesting. So anyway, that's my take on it. So love to hear from you guys. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Appreciate you watching. Hi, Pops.